Hey there, and welcome to the Totally Fierce Crochet channel. My name's Thomas, and in this video I'm going to show you how to make those beautiful textured crochet hand warmers. Now I don't know how the weather is where you live, but over here it's still freaking cold, so these hand warmers do exactly what I need. They keep my hands warm because I always have cold hands. They have the most beautiful texture. They're fully reversible. So this is one side, this is the other side. They're easy to do, it just needs a little patience. They're super easy to put on and of course to put off. Now let's put cold hands to the past and make yourself some hand warmers. But as always, before we start, just take a sec to like this video and to subscribe to my channel. Thank you! Now who's ready to make some hand warmers? Alright, so what you need to make such beautiful, luxurious looking premium hand warmers with this super fabulous texture from both sides actually. Here's what you need. First up, the yarn that I used from Pingouin, the French brand. I use for almost all my projects. It's called Pingo Happy, and these colors just do exactly that. They make me happy. Those reds and purples, it's just beyond beautiful. It even has some real wool in it, so it's not 100% polyester, which is why it has this super soft and a bit more fuzzy texture, which I love, especially for things that I wear on my skin, of course. And they say we need a hook size with 4.5 millimeters. For this project, I will actually going to be using a 5 millimeter hook, just because I want to have this even softer texture for it. But later on I'm going to switch to a 4.5 millimeter hook for the border on both sides to finish it off. Then very important for, especially for this project, the yarn needle, not only to sew in the yarn ends in the end, but also to sometimes like grab the stitches or the loops a bit up, because depending on what yarn you're using and how tight you do your work, some of those loops are a bit hidden or hard to find. So it's always good to have the yarn needle at hand whenever you need it. And some scissors. I got some new flashy ones that I absolutely love. And that's basically it. So we can start. So for this textured wave stitch, we are going always in sections of 5 stitches. So every multiple of 5 would be like your starting point. As you can see here, those are 5, those are 5, those are 5. Trust me, throughout this project, the number 5 will be stuck in your head and you will always be rechecking. So while the stitches are not that complicated, even though it looks complicated, the more complicated part or the more advanced part here is definitely the counting. So always keep on counting in your head. And of course, since I'm a guy and I'm quite tall, so you have to figure out what size you want to have your hand warmers. I mean, in the end, you can always like twist them over to make them shorter on both ends, but that's up to you. It depends really on the size of your hand, how long you want to have it. In my case, or in this example, I did a chain of 45. So again, make sure that you can divide it by 5. So I have like 9 of those 5 stitch segments in the end. And this is how we also start. So let me grab the yarn. So as always, we start with a slip knot. Sorry, my voice is a bit itchy because of the cold weather. And what would be important for you would also be that you leave quite a long tail of the yarn in the beginning. The reason is that later on we are going to use this yarn end to sew the parts together, so just leave it a bit longer. And so we can start with the slip knot. I do it as I always do it. I twist the yarn like this, get the loop through, pull it, and then pull it tight, and I'm good to go. And as I mentioned before, I'm starting with the 5mm hook. So to start off, we are going to chain 45, or I for my hand warmer. If you then have just 40 or 35 or even 30, it's completely okay as long as it's dividable by 5. So we do a chain as we always do. We yarn over and then pull through, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through, until we have 45 stitches. So here we go, 45 to start with, and now we are ready to start round number 1. And for each new round, before we do that, we always chain 1, and then we start working into the second loop from the hook. So the entirety of this project is basically done with slip knots and half double crochets. And to start off the first real round, we are going to work in the back loop. For all the future stitches that we do, we are always going to use the back loop for the next stitch. So you grab your hook and pull it into that second loop from the hook. Here's the first, here's the second. You pull it through, you yarn over, pull through, and pull through, and this is your first slip knot. So we start with 5 slip knots. 2, 3, 4, and 5. This is what I meant with the number 5. It will pop up all the time, because next up we are going to make 5 half double crochets in the next 5 stitches. So to do this, we yarn over, pull the hook through that back loop of the next stitch, yarn over and pull it through. You now have 3 loops on your hook. You yarn over and pull through all 3 of them all at once. Then the next one, we yarn over, pull the hook through, yarn over, pull it through, 3 loops on your hook, and yarn over and pull through. Make sure that you keep everything a bit loose in terms of tension, because that will make it easier for the next rounds. So we made 2 half double crochets. Now we are going to make 3 more, now 2 more, and 2 more, 1 more, sorry, and this was the 5th one. So we had 5 slip knots and then 5 half double crochets. You can see that it starts waving, which is exactly what we want, which is also then the reason why the beginning is just a bit more tricky. But as long as you count, you're all good to go. Next up, we are going to repeat like we did before. We do the next 5 slip knots. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And now I'm pretty sure you know what comes next. Of course, 5 half double crochets in the next 5 back loops. 1, 2, 3, 4, oops, and 5. So now it got even more wavy here. And this is basically what we are going to do all the way until we reach the end. And I'm going to, you can press pause, and I'm going to meet you at the end. So we continue with slip knots, half double crochets, all the way till the end, alternating after every 5th stitch. So see you there in a bit. Take your time. This pattern really needs some time to make, and it also needs some time until you see some results. So just keep it slow and steady. Check the number of stitches, 5, and then 5 half double crochets. So see you in a bit. So I just finished the first round, my first 45 stitches. I hope you ended up at a number that's a multiple of 5. Otherwise, you would have to open it up again and redo. Now is the best time to do it. Later on, it's going to be tricky. So just make sure you have now 45 stitches. And now we can start round number 2, and we do this as we always do when turning. We chain 1, and then we are going to be working again always in the back loops. And for the round 1 and 2 of this pattern, we do exactly the same thing, and the same then later on goes for round 3 and 4, and then we go back to round 1 and 2. So we do the same thing like we did in round 1. We do 5 slip knots, then 5 half double crochets, then again 5 slip knots, 5 half double crochets, and only always in those back loops. And there you will see that at some point it might get a bit tricky to find those loops or to grab them, but I'm pretty sure you will find a way to get them. So here we have the 5 slip knots, then we make our 5 half double crochets in the back loops, 2, 3, 4, and the last one is right here. Now it gets even more wavy, so that's basically also why it's called the textured wave stitch. And then let's see, where are those? See, they are very hidden. They're right here. I was lucky I got it. The next one looks a bit tight. So what I'm going to do, this is why I mentioned to have the yarn needle at hand. I'm going to just push them up a little bit so I can later on grab them more easily. Here we go. 2, 3, 4, do that again. And the 5th one is right here. And then, you know, of course, you know what's next. The 5 half double crochets that are usually a bit easier to make in those back loops. 2, 3, 4, and 5. This is how it looks, like a little moustache here. And then again we go back, or we continue with 5 slip knots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then again our half double crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Whenever you count it to 5, you always know to go back to 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and back to 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And now there are just the 5 half double crochet, slip knots. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's see if I can get that last one without the needle. Probably not. So I'm going to just go in there, push the loop up, and pull it through. And here we go. This was round number 2. Now you can see those bumps, those peaks coming up, and from the back, the other part, the other side. And now, this was round number 2. So as I told you, we are always switching between rounds 1 and 2 and then 3 and 4. So now we are going into round 3 again. We make a chain first, and then whenever we had a slip knot in round 2, we now do a half double crochet, and whenever we had a half double crochet in round 2, we do a slip knot. And since a half double crochet is a bit higher than a slip knot, I'm just going to push the yarn or the loop on my hook a bit upwards, then yarn over, and then go into that first back loop and make my half double crochet. Again, we start with 5. So rounds 1 and 2 start with slip knots. Rounds 3 and 4 start with half double crochets, and now there's like another stitch that is, or another loop that I couldn't get without the help of my yarn needle. This one should go. This is what I meant with that pattern definitely needs some time. So now we had our 5 half double crochets. Now we can continue with the 5 slip knots. Usually they are very easy because the half double crochets from the previous round are quite big. 4 and 5, and then again we yarn over and go into those back loops with the next 5 half double crochets. Such a pretty color change. And the 5th one, and now our 5 slip knots, and this is what we continue all the way through this 3rd round. And I see you once you're in the back or in the end of round 3. Now it gets really tough to find them. Here's one and here's the last one. So very hidden. Which for me is like the only reason why this pattern takes that long. Where is it? Here. Here we go. And just like this, you finished round number 3. As you can see, it balances everything out a little bit. And now we are going back in the 4th round, and again we make a chain 1. We turn the work, pull the loop up a little bit to get some height, yarn over, and then the same thing like we did in round 3. We start with the 5 half double crochets, 2, 3, 4, and 5 to get like this shell here that we also had like down here, which is like then the second bump that we have, and then 5 slip knots. Oh, those are really tough. Oh. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you know what that means. We go back to the first half double and then the next, and this we continue all the way through the end of round 4, and I'll see you there in a bit. So welcome back. I only have one half double crochet in round 4 left, and I stopped here mainly to show you that when you had like the half double crochet in the previous round, the back loop is hidden right here. So it's not that one here, it's in here. So I always had to grab it from down there. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. So you really have that last half double crochet. As you can see, I had another color change in between, and now we have completed one full segment, rounds 1 to 4, and you can also see that now those waves, those bumps here, they're all equally wide. So we're on the right path, and here you have those bumps, and when you turn it, you have this same beautiful texture, but just with the bumps to the inside. I'm so obsessed with this pattern, really. Even though it's so hard to make, or fiddly to make. It's not hard to make, it's very fiddly, but still so beautiful. So to continue for you, you basically repeat the rounds 1 to 4 all the way through until you reach, until you can put the project or the piece of work around your wrist. And again, to turn, we chain 1, and then as we started in round 1 with slip knots, we do the same here. So we start with 5 slip knots in the back loop of the previous half double crochet, and then once we have the 5 slip knots, then we continue with the half double crochets in the back loops of the previous slip knots, and the next round will be the same, just from the other side. and then we are going to alternate and start with the half double crochets first. And this is basically it. So you do this until you reach the width of your hand warmers, until you can wrap them around your wrist. And I'll see you once I have my 40 rounds completed. So see you then. So 40 rounds later, this is where I am right now. This is how it looks. So pretty from both sides. I still can't get over the fact that you actually have two sides to use. One is the one with the little bumps here, and the other one has this beautiful textured wave pattern. So pretty. And with the color gradient yarn, you always get like a very unique look and a very luxe feel. It feels just awesome. Too bad you can't feel it by watching this. And this now is round 40, as I mentioned. You can always count by those bumps. Here I have 10 in one line, and then there's the next 10 in the other, so in total 20. And each of these bumps represent two lines, or 2 rounds basically, so 40 in total. And once you have the size for your hand warmers that you're looking for, or that go around your hand or your wrist, you can always, of course, check again to see how it would fit. I usually measure it here directly at the wrist, and I always make it a little bit before I actually have the size of my wrist, just because it's wool, it's flexible, and you don't want to like lose them while wearing them. So always make sure to measure it. And what's also important is that you have those waves in the beginning and in the end. It's super important when we now sew both parts together that the waves are complementing each other. So here, when we don't have a wave, in the end we have a wave. Here we have a wave, here we don't have a wave. So it has to alternate to like really get together and to have in the end such a seamless hand warmer like I have here. So what we are now going to do basically is to, so pretty. I'm not sure if I ever take them off, to be honest, especially in winter. So what we are going to do now is to sew like both ends together. For my measurement, or for my bigger hand, I sewed in together the first 2.5 5-stitch elements, and in the back I sewed in 1, 2, 3, 4 of those elements together, and leaving the part in the middle empty where you put your thumbs through. And this is our next step in this tutorial, and this is also why I told you in the beginning to leave a longer tail in the beginning, and we are now leaving another long tail in the end. So we yarn through one more time, and then we can cut the yarn, leave it a bit longer, just like this, and we can pull the yarn through and secure it. That's basically it. Now, what I think is always super important is that the direction of the stitches point towards like the front of the hand, like this. So you do want to have those V's going towards the end of your hand, because otherwise for me, I mean, it still looks pretty, but for me, it's just disturbing me. So I sew it together so that these V's go in the direction of the hand, which means that this part here, we are going to sew in 2.5 basically of those stitches, and here we are going to sew in 4 stitches or 4 sets of 5 stitches. Um, so this in the end here will be our space for the thumb, and let's get to it. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how to sew your work together. So it's for this step it's important that we continue working in those back loops. Here you can see them. They're right here, not those in the front. Those in the back are the back loops. And the same goes for the other side. Here we have the back loops down here and not those. And this part, this side here is especially tricky because you basically have like your stitches here, but those look pretty much the same. They're just reverse. But those ones here are the ones we need. If you're unsure, you can always test it with a few stitches and then see how it goes. But what's important is that you have aligned your work together a little bit like this. And we are going to start with the lower part, like the one that's going to be on your wrist afterwards. And as I mentioned before, I had like 1, 2, 3, almost 4 5-stitch elements together, and we are going to do this here now as well, and I'm going to show you how to do that. And this is now why you also see that it's important to leave a longer yarn tail in the end. So that first one here is always a bit weird because we had the knot from the beginning, but I'm going to go through it just like this, and then I'm going to find that first back loop, which is right here, and we are always going from the top, or in this case from below, through it, and then from under it back again. So you have it like this, and then we go back into that next stitch, and we are always do it that we go into that same stitch again from the top, and then through the next one from the bottom, and back again. Here we go from the top, and then from the bottom. Maybe like this, you see it better. I'm going to try to twist my arm a little bit, then back from the top, and already through the bottom of the next one. Here you can see it looks a bit like it's as if it's from a sneaker. And then now I'm going to turn the work a little bit more so you can see it better. So here we go from the top and through the bottom of the next stitch, and the next one from here from the top and back from the bottom. Where is it? Here it is. and the next one like this. Now what we are going to do, because this yarn or this wool is a little bit it's so delicate that it might actually burst or snap. So I'm going to, just as if this would be a sort of a corset, I'm going just to pull on the yarn to close it. And as you can see, you almost see nothing. And then we are ready for the next one. So the first element is done. And now we are going in the next one from the top. And here again. And the last one on that side. And then we can push the yarn gently. And this was the second element. Now we go, where are we? I think we are here. And the next one is done. And we pull it gently. You can always check if you're on the same height. It's not that important if you like really get all of the loops correctly, but it definitely looks much nicer when you have that symmetry. And the last ones. Did I miss something? I think I missed something. Here there was something weird. So this can happen. Especially when you're a perfectionist like me, then you always want to have it right. So let's go back in there. And then from here. Where's that stitch? I think I have to take this one out as well. I think this was the one that was wrong in the first place. Oh well, me and sewing. We will never be friends. So here's that stitch and here's the next one. It's right here. Okay. Now hopefully I'm back at it. Here's the next stitch. Here's the other. And I think that was it. Pull it. And this side is done. What we're going to do now is to secure it in a way that we just make a knot in there, just so that both parts are together. And then I'm going to easy sew through that stitch that we just made. And always try to pull a little bit through that yarn. So it's enough to go a little bit through it and then back again. That should be enough. And we can cut it. And the wrist side is done. So now there's only this part here left, and I leave you up to it. And once you finished, I'll meet you back to finish the rest of the work together. Welcome back. So I made it through from both sides. And again, I mean, you can always then also do it like this, or you can wrap it around your wrist a little bit, just as you like. What I usually love to do, or I can also show you the other side, which looks so pretty as well. But what I usually do to finish off a work is to put a border just around the edge to clean it up a little bit. Here you can see it. And by doing this, this also gives me the opportunity to fix some things. Like here, there's still a big space here from the sewing, which I don't really know why. Oh, now it's gone. Quite funny. Don't worry about things like this. We can incorporate them when we do the border. And what I love when it comes to hand warmers is that here it goes a little bit more together and that it's not that loose around the hands. So I'm going to like skip 1 or 2 stitches here when I do the border around it to pull it a bit more tight together. And this is what I show you now, before we can then finally finish off these hand warmers. So for the border, before I use the 5mm hook, you can use the same hook size for the border as well, but to have it like a bit more, I don't know, I don't know the English word for it, a bit more tight. As a border, I'm going to switch to a 4.5mm hook, which is not that big of a difference, to be honest, but anyhow, it works. So we are actually going to start here, and what I'm going to do is that I always go then through those, or I'm trying to, it won't be visible that much in the end, to go through those turning chains that we had. Here it's already a bit messy. Let's try to find it. It's somewhere here. Maybe now I got it. That looks better. So when the hook then goes through the work more on its own, you always know that you're in the right spot. And right now I'm going to also incorporate this little piece of extra here. And what I do is to simply make single crochets around, always trying to find a spot. Doesn't have to be 100% accurate, just to secure it. And since this is also the side where I am going to reduce, the amount of stitches, it's totally fine. And by having the strands of yarn already incorporated, I save myself from another round of sewing. And here we are in the next bigger stitch. And let's just go in here. So I don't really have like any specific stitches where I go in. It's mainly how I feel where it should be. Then again, we won't forget to skip it or make it a bit tighter. This is also the reason why I used a smaller hook size, just to tighten it up a little bit. Maybe in here. And all the way through. And again, the border is completely optional. You don't have to do it. If you like to have a bit more raw edges or a raw border, you can always leave it as it was. It's just a preference of mine, basically. But that's also the beauty of crochet, that you can, once you know how to do things, you can make them the way you want to have them. And you can also make them in a way where you feel most comfortable with. That's what I meant with the sewing. You don't have to use the same sewing like I did before. You can totally use your own, and it will be absolutely perfect. Well, definitely more perfect than mine, that's for sure. So a few more, and then we can at some point also leave that yarn end because we won't need it, and in the end we would just cut it. And here we go, we are back where we started. I'm just going to put a slip knot in the end and then cut the yarn and pull it through, secure it. Now this was the yarn end. We can now just cut it. I let it go all the way through. You could have left it earlier if you want to. And now, still not done with the sewing. We are just going to sew in that last piece in there. Here it gets now a bit tight because this is where we like also placed the sewing the last time. And just a few more rounds back all through that part here. And that's it. And it's done with that upper border. So if I now use it, you see it goes a little bit more towards the fingers. And now there's only this border here left. You know how to do it, so I see you back once you have it. So here we go. Both hand warmers are now completed. They look so pretty from both sides. Here's another. Yarn peeking out. So this side here and here we can go in there. So pretty, so gorgeous. I love them so much. Interestingly, they're almost like they're mirrored, but they're not. And here you can see both patterns. So pretty. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed making those beautiful textured crochet hand warmers with me. And I hope to see you again next time, only at the Totally Fierce Crochet channel. Bye!